Welcome back, everyone. We hope you're enjoying the Brave series. We're going to hear from Pastor Tim now about what it means to be brave enough to follow.
In 2012, the pilot of flight KH-209 radioed to the traffic controller, quote, "KH-209, I need to descend immediately. I can't maintain altitude." Now, just seconds before he radioed that, he and the co-pilot had found smoke in the cockpit of the airplane. Now, where there's smoke, there's fire, and fire on an airplane can get real bad real quick. They don't know where the fire is. They don't know if the fire is contained or if it's going to spread rapidly. And he has 129 people on the airplane that he's responsible for. So the pilot does what only he can do, and he reaches out to help from the air traffic controller to say, "I have to descend. I can't stay in the air." The air traffic controller came back on the line and says, "KH-209, turn 15 degrees right and descend." And there was no further instructions. Now, what complicates the situation with KH-209 is that it was flying to Florida over Maryland, and that strip of air was really narrow at the time because of some military maneuvers. There was a bunch of the airspace around them that was restricted. Additionally, the FAA has rules about how close an airplane can fly to another airplane, like above and below. You have to be, more than 1,000 feet away, and beside each other all the way around, you have to be more than 5 miles away from each other. And so he's flying on a very narrow strip of air. Think about like a lane on a highway. And there's a plane about 2,000 feet below him that is going in the same direction at about the same speed. And he has to get down, he has to land. And so he reaches out to the air traffic controller and says, "Hey, I've got to land the plane." And the traffic controller comes back on and says, "Okay, turn 15 degrees right and descend." I cannot imagine being that pilot. To get an instruction like that, to not know all the details of what's going to go on, but to just be desperate and to know that this is the only instruction that I've been given. Now, the pilot has a choice. He can stay in the air, or he can follow the directions of the air traffic controller. For you, me, and the air traffic controller, it's very similar than for you, me, and Jesus. Jesus in Matthew 16, he's talking to his disciples, and he says this. He says, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Now, Jesus's audience at this day, they know what a crucifixion is. They have seen people crucified. They've either seen it or they know somebody who saw it. They're very familiar with this practice. It is a gruesome, grisly, horrible way to die. And Jesus says, if you're going to follow me, you're going to have to take up your cross and go through this grisly, horrible, gruesome experience. Not exactly the type of message that wins fans, right? In fact, I don't know if you know this, but the word excruciating comes from the root word "from the cross." We define other pain levels by the level of pain that someone felt when they were on the cross. His audience would have understood what he was saying. That this isn't going to be easy, this is going to be tough, and you're just going to have to trust me. And that was a huge, huge statement. Later on in verse 25, he goes on and he says, "For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it." Now, we don't execute people by crucifixion anymore. That's not a common practice. And so I don't know that Jesus is telling us to literally go out into the woods, cut down some trees, and make a cross. I think what he's trying to tell us is that you have to follow me by following me. You don't just get to follow me when you can see where this is going. You don't just get to follow me when this is comfortable. You don't just get to follow me when you want to. See, Jesus isn't trying to attract fans. That's why this statement scared people off. He's trying to attract followers. And he says, if you're going to follow me, then you have to follow me. Later on in Jesus' ministry over in the book of John, Jesus has another one of these conversations with those people who have been following him. And he says some things that are kind of scary and controversial. And it says that a large number of people just stopped following Jesus after that. They just got their things and walked away. And so Jesus goes to the 12 and he says, so what about you? Are you going to leave too? And Peter gives this answer that probably only Peter could give. It's so Peter. And it's so great. He just looks at Jesus and he says, no, we're staying with you. Like, where else would we go? To who else would we turn? Who else knows the way back to God the Father? It's kind of like the air traffic controller and the pilot, right? The pilot has a choice. He can stay in the air and risk the lives of 129 people, or he can trust and follow the air traffic controller's instructions, even though he doesn't know exactly what all the steps are or how it's going to play out. But what other choice does he really have? He doesn't really have a choice. Staying in the air isn't really a choice. And Peter says, following Jesus or not following Jesus, like there's a choice there, but it's not really a choice because who else knows what you know, Jesus, and who else can do what you do, and who else can help us? So, in a sense, Jesus is not saying like necessarily that you have to go die today, but what he's saying is that when you follow me, you have to follow me. And you have to follow me every day. And you have to do what I tell you to do even if you don't understand it. As KH-209 made its descent to the earth, it flew into unrestricted areas, and it flew within the proximity limits of other airplanes. But all along the way, the air controller was calling ahead of him. He was calling ahead and he was getting special permission to move into restricted space. He was calling other airplanes and telling them to adjust. But when those planes moved, then other planes had to move. And he continued to work and move the pieces to get KH-209 to the ground safely with all 129 passengers intact. Jesus doesn't say that this is always going to be easy. He doesn't say that it's always going to be comfortable. But he says, if you just follow me, and even when you don't understand, continue to follow me, I will move the pieces around to get you where you're supposed to be. And that means following Jesus is going to require a lot of courage. And my challenge to you today as you go to your groups is, are you brave enough to follow?